In many workplaces, particularly the larger, more organizational and departmental workplaces, there can run the very real risk of departments and teams beginning to act in silos and operate within silos. And within the workplace, what that really means is that they silo themselves into their own department and into their own team or area of operations, and they don't go sideways and interact with others. That is generally unavoidable or risky for those larger organizations that do really specifically operate within departments. But the trick here is to notice it as soon as you're able to, and then find ways to counteract it. It can be a tricky thing to counteract as well. There is a lot that goes into impacting change and change management, especially at that higher level, especially at that larger level. But what the issue with working within silos is that it means that it creates a culture of us versus them. And that can be really dangerous when it comes to just general healthy workplace culture and the feeling of people actually wanting to be there and interact with each other along the corridor or in the lunchroom or out the front as they're both walking in. If they're not in the same department, they are less likely to have that real human interaction on those incidental levels, which then can impact that level of satisfaction and sense of belonging. So a lot of organizations, when they are stuck in that operating in silo system, report that there are increased levels of toxicity within the culture, within not just departments, but across the board. And there is always, also, not always, but also often a department that is perceived to be the toxic one. And whether or not that is true isn't up to me to say. It's more about the fact that there is this level of awareness and this level of toxicity and this level of feeling going on within a workplace and within an organization that needs to be addressed. So when you find and when you come to the point where you realize that your workplace is operating as silos, what can you do? In the workplace training that I deliver, on one level, it removes the labels, and it's designed to do it this way, where there are no hierarchies. So for the training in particular, for the purposes of the training and for the duration of the training, there are no real labels or need to know who is who, as far as who's the manager, who's the executive, who's the someone else. That doesn't form a part of necessity within the training. And what that does is it allows everyone to be on the same level, in the sense of, oh, we're human beings who happen to work in the same place, who are all learning something and experiencing something new together. So what you can do with the silos is similar. You can remove the hierarchy and have scenarios, whether it's workplace training or something else. But it's also important to look at removing the need for people to relate to their department or their team specifically in that scenario. And obviously this isn't overall, and this is just one thing that you can do, but it's when you implement or conduct or have someone come in like me and do and facilitate this workplace training for you, what then happens is suddenly everyone's in the same room, and it doesn't matter to me or to the facilitator or to whoever, it doesn't matter what department they are in, it doesn't matter what team they are in or what work they do. No one is put above the other. But also, it's not so much about the putting above. No one is different to the other in the sense of how they get interacted with, what they learn, and then when it comes time for them to interact, you remove that label, and that label, that practice of removing the label, even in a temporary scenario like a day training, makes a big difference. It allows a moment of connection between one and more people who wouldn't normally connect, or who don't normally take the time out to connect, or don't have a reason to either, or maybe they feel intimidated to because they don't know who the other person is in whatever other department, and they don't want to feel weird because maybe there's no reason for them to normally reach out and say hi or to relate or connect to each other. And having that practice in place can actually really help improve the culture and the levels of stress. It becomes a more welcoming environment when it is regular as well. And when people feel welcomed in their own workplaces in subtle, natural, gentle ways, they are more likely to want to be there. They are more likely to have the energy and maybe even a smile when they show up, and they don't wear stress the same typically. Obviously, stress comes down to a lot of other factors as well beyond what's just happening here, but typically when it comes to workplace stress, when it's directly related to a feeling of isolation in the workplace, that stress can weigh heavy, and it can really impact the health, like the physical health of people in that environment or in that scenario, but also the mental and emotional health. And when they feel that sense of welcoming, even if it's a subtle change or a slight change, it's better when it's a slow little change rather than a bombardment, because that can feel false. But when it's that at least a subtle change and there's a feeling of welcoming and almost like that light at the end of the tunnel, people will wear their stress a little differently in the workplace, even on a fractional level. So that is one way. If you find that your workplace is in silos, find ways and moments and opportunities. And obviously it's not necessarily going to be every day, because you still have to operate, you still have to be operational and functional, but finding more of those opportunities to have everyone in a place where their label and their department and their team, where that label of their department and team no longer matters as much. And that can change. If you think about Christmas parties, that's why Christmas parties, everyone bonds, because no one cares what department you're in a Christmas party. Everyone just cares if you are contributing to their good time or not, right? So that's one step. It's a little step, but it can be really important and really helpful when it comes to workplace culture and stress and toxicity within that culture.